Fire Engineering Radio, to our show Pride and Ownership, the Love for the Job. I'm your host, Chief Rick Lasky. A couple quick reminders coming up of a couple great events that you definitely don't want to miss, and our good brother Billy Goldfeder has been pushing it, and a host of other folks. But we got FDIC coming up, the Fire Department Instructors Conference coming up in Indianapolis. It starts the 19th and closes out on the 24th. If you can get there, I know it's a tough time budget-wise or whatever, share a room, put 9 or 10 of you in a room, whatever you got to do. I know that's not right, but anyway, get there. If you've never experienced, I've got a good friend of mine that's going that's never been there, and I just can't wait to talk to him at the end of the week, because 28,000 firefighters run around those streets, and sometimes you learn a ton in the classroom, and then you learn a ton at night being able to visit with firefighters from all over the country. And probably the biggest eye-opener for our guys is, you're not the only one that's got budget problems. You're not the only one that's got a bad time. Or you're not the only one that has a mutt for a chief or a firefighter or slug or whatever. You kind of realize that there's stuff going on all over. So great, absolutely wonderful conference. Chief Halton and obviously Mr. Biacchini, Mr. B, the owner from Penwell, they put something on that's unmatched anywhere else. And then the next one is, keep in mind, we've got Keeping Tradition Alive going on right here in Louisville. That's our Honor Guard Pipes and Drums Symposium. It's the third year we're doing it. Our city has backed this wholeheartedly. In fact, the support is incredible for it. Like I said, that's May 13th and 14th. Early registration is Wednesday night. The Hot Fools, our local Fools chapter, will be hosting a little get-together with some beer and some wings and everything at the Hilton, and then we start off with general session, and then the instruction is, and this is whether you're new in the Honor Guard or you could be last year we had 16 drummers that never held a stick before. If you're just starting on your chanter, there's a beginner's class. This isn't just for those who have been playing for years. There's classes for everybody. There's classes for all levels. This is one of the first conferences, in fact, the first one like it in the country. There's a couple more popping up out there now, thank goodness, because we need to get this going a little bit more in some other parts of the country. Again, the classes are great. We're paying for your breakfast. We'll pick you up at the airport. We're paying for your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, a bunch of other things. There's going to be some vendors there that are going to give you some discounts, because a lot of these guys and gals pay for this on their own. Just great stuff. Some of the instructors, Don Shannon, world-class pipe major from the North Texas Caledonians, incredible stuff has played for presidents, and just if you get to his bio, ScottishPiper.com, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Another world-class drummer, Steve Cameron. Mr. Stephen Cameron will be heading up with the drummers, and then we're going to have two very, very special guests. Tyler Fry, one of the highest-rated tenor drummers in the world, Ty Fry, and then Jim Kilpatrick, who probably is the highest-rated snare drummer in the world, coming from Scotland, has won, I can't tell you how many times he's won. I think it's 18 in major events. Absolutely incredible. National Honor Guard will be there doing instruction with Doug Schwartz and his group from Florida, one of the best, if not the best, Honor Guard group in the country. And then following Keeping Tradition Alive, when things close up, because like I said, Wednesday night we'll do the little get-together. Thursday and Friday are classes. Thursday night's the largest mass band assembly in front of our old city, our new city hall in our Old Town area. Antique fire rigs on display through our good friend, Brother Billy Longo, who, if you haven't seen it before, has the 343 engine, the Mac engine. It's 200-something pipers and drummers circled up playing. There's food, there's beer garden. It's a great evening. And then they do a little marching through from one bar to another bar to a restaurant. And Friday night we're doing the same thing. So great event. And that is followed by Sunday starts the National Honor Guard Academy. We'll be conducting a week-long academy here in Louisville the week of. If you need someone to do your instruction from your group, if you need to bolster their skills or whatever, two things. One is, if you're looking for information on Keeping Tradition Alive, get a hold of my Bomb and Arson Chief, Division Chief Terry McGrath, and you can get a hold of him probably email is the easiest way. He'll get to you right away, and that's T as in Tom, T McGrath, McGrath, T McGrath at cityoflouisville.com. And Terry, answer all your questions about the Honor Guard and Pipes and Drum Symposium. If you're looking for information on National Honor Guard Academy, go right to their site, and you can sign up. Plus, Terry can also point you in that direction, too. So some great things coming up, and great couple of conferences, obviously FDIC and then Keeping Tradition Alive, which, by the way, Editor-in-Chief Bobby Halton will be leading off once again with our opening ceremonies and our keynote, and he does an incredible job, so we love having Brother Halton here. So, all right, enough about that. Want to talk a little bit more about pride and ownership today. Want to get to kind of talking about, everything from tools and firehouses and apparatus and your firefighters to, setting that, that attitude and how you do it. And I've got one of my best buddies and one of my brothers with us today who's going to bring to you both from the paid side and the volunteer side, because he does them both, a view that a lot of people can't paint, because some of us are on one side or the other and really don't understand what it's like to work in a paid department and then what it's like to work in a volunteer department. Go from a big budget to fundraisers and all that kind of stuff. So my guest today, again, is truly one of my best friends, and I love him to death. I've known him for years. I can't remember not knowing him. Is Captain Homer Robertson with the Fort Worth Fire Department, Fort Worth, Texas. And Captain Robertson's been with Fort Worth for 25 years. I'm going to let him kind of walk us through where he's been there. He's also on the Granbury Volunteer Fire Department, which is south of Fort Worth. He's been on there since 1978. His dad started there in 1954. Been out there umpteen times to visit. Had the honor of doing a talk for him when they were opening up their memorial. The Firefighter Memorial. His son Ty is a good young man. He's obviously, with the kind of dad he's got, he's got a bright future above him and coming to him. But with that, I want to welcome my buddy Homer to the show. Welcome, pal.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words.
Oh, bro, you know what? And I do this all the time. Probably the best way I can when people ask me to describe you, I just say, Homer is truly. I mean, when you're looking truly for someone that is a fire service brother, there he is, but probably more importantly, he's a gentleman. He's just a great guy, and I appreciate everything. You've been there for me, buddy. Getting me down to Texas, you and Chief Bass from Grapevine, former Dallas deputy, and just two people that brought me to my son, and I can't thank you enough. But, without... I want you to talk about something here for a little bit. Our state training institution, the Texas Fire Service, heck, for that matter, the National International Fire Service, just suffered a tremendous loss. And I don't want to, get you with hurt feelings right away, buddy, because I know he was a very close and dear friend to you. But could you kind of explain what you're going through and what's happening here in the state with this incredible loss?
Well, in this last week, we lost a gentleman named Pat Barrett. Pat Barrett was the assistant director at TEEX in Texas. That's the Texas Engineering Extension Service. They're the one that they run the Brayton Fire Training Field in College Station at Texas A&M, but they also do all of our extension programs here. And if you've never been to Texas A&M and seen that field at Brayton Field, it is state of the art, unlike anything else in the world. People from literally from all over the world train there on a weekly basis. I mean, you may have the London Fire Brigade in, or Exxon in from Saudi Arabia or from China. There's just no telling who you'll see there on a daily basis. Pat had been with TEEX for many years and was serving as their executive director, and died suddenly this week of a medical complication. Just a huge loss to the Texas Fire Service, and as you said, literally to the National Fire Service and the International Fire Service. He was the liaison with TEEX to the Mexico fire chiefs, and was real involved in their Spanish-speaking school. Many of you may not realize, but 1 week out of the summer, Texas A&M hosts a Spanish-speaking school where all the instruction, all the material is done in Spanish, and they'll have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 Spanish-speaking firefighters there. Pat was very involved in that, and those folks come from all over the Spanish-speaking world. But he is just it's going to be a tremendous loss to us because of Pat, because he was a great man.
Homer, how long was Pat with Teeks?
He served with Teeks for about 25 years, I believe. 25
years. And,
yes.
and again, if you folks, what Homer said, if you've never been to A&M, pull up their website. I get the opportunity to see some great academies and some great places, but I think they're unmatched with that whole Disaster City and some other things down towards that way, and just
the Disaster City and I mean they've got two fully deranged trains. One's a passenger, one's a freight train. They've got aircraft, ships. They do shipboard firefighting. Just about anything you can think of, they have a prop to address whatever kind of issue you're trying to face.
Well, buddy, I'm telling you, I've been down there several times. I've had the honor of being able to teach some programs down there. Very, very proud to have done that, and it just to have been down there just the times I've been there, and any program they put on is done the right way. I'll tell you one thing, not a whole lot of ego there. I've been around some state academies where the director, it's all about him and about stroking his ego and his name and everything else. And that is definitely, first of all, that was definitely not Pat. He was more about giving than he couldn't care less.
It had sat on the Texas Commission for Fire Protection and had just done a tremendous thing. But we're going to have a memorial service for Pat tomorrow in College Station, which will be a huge event, and we just want to keep Pat, his family, and the fire service community in our thoughts and prayers this next week.
I appreciate you sharing that with us, brother. And I know he was just a very close and dear friend to you, and you were there when he passed. And just again, our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family and those close to him. So, all right, Homer, Fort Worth. I've got a pretty good idea and know your department fairly well, being not too far from there, and knowing you and some of the guys there. Tell our audience, how big is Fort Worth Fire Department?
The Fort Worth Fire Department, we're the city itself is that we have about 350 square miles. That makes us approximately, the 11th largest city in the United States geographically. Population-wise, we're about the 18th largest city. We have approximately 740 residents now spread over that 350 square miles. I think we've got 915 sworn members, and then about 70 civilian employees that work in conjunction with our sworn folks.
Well, buddy, I could tell you this much, and I do when I travel. I brag on your guys. With a department of that size, Homer, to really rarely, if at all, have any hiccups with personnel. The press is always positive. I mean, your guys bury up. They fight fires. I've watched them. They're into the job. I tell you, whoever sits in the chair there as fire chief has just got to be bursting. And right now, Rudy Jackson's your chief, and Rudy just seems like a great guy.
Chief Jackson is a wonderful man. He's been doing us a really good job. He's our third chief in less than 8 years. Chief Larry Mac McMullen, had been here since 1980 until about 2002. From 1980 to 2002. So he served 22 years here as the fire chief after actually retiring and putting 20 years in at Phoenix. And then Chief Gaines from Oklahoma City came in and was with us for a few years and tragically passed away. Chief Jackson came here, worked his way up through the ranks, and has ascended to the fire chief's position as a local boy, and has really done has done us a really nice job. He's a great person and a great fire chief.
Well, and I told him that. I just recently saw him at a meeting, Homer, and I told him, I go, whenever I run into anybody that's wearing the Fort Worth patch or the logo, they've got nothing but good things to say. And when you constantly hear good stuff, it's obviously that's what's going on. I mean, sometimes people are really good at covering their act, if you will. There's no covering there for anything other than he does a great job. And I mean, you guys are still growing, right? I mean,
we are still growing. We're still annexing, area all the time, and taking in new stuff. And then we have a lot of undeveloped land that will over the next few years be developed. We have one new station under construction, and then probably proposed we could actually use 4 more fire stations just to cover the ground that we have annexed right now.
And then I told someone the other day, I think you guys might stop at the Oklahoma border when it comes to annexing and kind of work your way that way too. So you'll be flying 2 flags one day. You're the Texas flag of the United States, or the 3 flags, and then the one from Canada. You guys keep going because the growth is incredible there.
Right. They have been very aggressive in their annexation, and they believe that for the city of Fort Worth in the next many years to come is that they need undeveloped land where they can where a lot of different industry can go into.
Well, and that kind of leads me to my next thing. I wanted you to just talk, if you would, a little bit about right now, Homer. I mean, budgets are kind of all over the place. There's people laying off guys. There's a very few departments are really able to move forward right now. It's a national crisis, if you will, in the fire service, where some people said it's like we're purging our system. We're going back 20, 30 years where things were. And in some places, I've said this before, they truly don't have the money. In some places, they say they don't, but they do, and you see what some of the stuff they're doing. But really, there's so many fire departments out there that are truly, the chiefs are struggling, man, to make their budgets work. But you guys actually, I mean, and I want you to kind of go back in time, and let's start recently. The news hit around here about the new contract that the association
right.
was able to work through with the city.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we had just in the last 2 years, we had gone to the citizens, and we had operated under the Texas State Civil Service, which regulated police and firefighters. We had asked, there are stipulations in our legal system to be able to ask for you could either ask for meet and confer, which our police officers have, or you could ask for collective bargaining. We went out, collected enough citizen signatures, and presented a collective bargaining issue to the citizens, which passed overwhelmingly. We have very good support from the citizens, and they continue to support us at the ballot box. So this is our first contract that we ever negotiated. It took 16 months to negotiate it. The executive staff of our local 440 represented us in meetings with the city. And over that 16 months, they finally brought to us last week a contract and asked us to ratify it. An overwhelming majority of Fort Worth firefighters thought that based on these economic times, that it was a fair and equitable contract. And you're always in a balancing act when you're doing this, especially in these kind of economic times, is that we don't want to look greedy. Our people aren't greedy and aren't self-centered, is they realize that we're all hurting, and they look around the country and they see where FDNY is proposing laying off 1,000 people, and what happened in Tulsa, and what's happening in Phoenix and LA, and in those the brownouts that you've seen, where all across the country people are shutting down stations. We lived through that. In the early 1990s, city of Fort Worth was heavily dependent on both the defense industry, and petroleum products. We have a lot of oil companies here, a lot of independent drillers, so we were very involved in particularly those 2 industries. And when we had to cut back during the Clinton administration of the defense industry, and then the same thing that had a slump in the petroleum industry, it wrecked our economy. We were in the early 1990s shutting down as many as 5 companies a day.
Wow.
When a lot of people weren't doing that, we were doing it. We shut 5 companies a day, and also over that same time period, we lost 100 firefighter positions, sworn firefighter positions, through attrition.
What was your number then, Homer? You lost 100 out of how many, you think? Do you
remember? We were in the low 800s at the time.
Okay.
And we dropped down to almost 700 firefighters.
I mean, God, okay.
So we took some tremendous hits during that time period, but we learned to adapt and overcome, And we would shut 5 companies down and scatter those personnel, out into the wind and try to fill in. And at the time, we were only running 3-man companies, 3-person companies. Some of our high-rise in downtown area and high-rise companies had 4, but a majority of our companies had 3 people on them.
Wow.
So we've lived through some hard times, and so we know how those people feel.
Well, and I mean, to see something like that, and I know, your union presidents, I love him to death. I mean, I've had nothing but great conversations with him, and I mean, tell me about him just a little bit. I know you've there's a couple guys we always seem to go to lunch with when we're there.
Right. And Jim Tate has been the local 440 president for some time. He's a battalion chief in Battalion 1 on the I believe he's on the B shift now. But Jim's been very successful and has really done a tremendous job at the local level. In the last 10 years, we've developed a very effective PACT fund, which is kind of the political arm of the 440, where a large majority of our members contribute to that PACT fund, and those things are being distributed out to support candidates that hold the views of our of the local, and that's been very successful. But Jim's done a tremendous job and was the lead, basically the lead negotiator during this 16-month process, and in order to get the contract in place.
Well, and I know the 4-person staffing issue has always been a priority for Jimmy. Heck, we've been talking about that for almost 10 years. How to get it done, how to not just do it on a part-time basis, but how to get it where you've got 4-person staffing all the time, and and he went after that in this contract. I think there were 4, or I think actually 5 items that members of the local had said that they wanted, that they thought were priorities. And it was the pay raise, it was 4-man staff, and it was taking care of health benefits and taking care of our retirees, and a couple more that I can't think of right here off the top of my head. But of those 5 things I think that were in the contract, they were able to accomplish 4 of them that are basically taken care of for the next 3 years. Well, 4-man staffing is one thing that was set in stone in the contract, unless we have some kind of catastrophic economic failure. They always have a get out of jail free card. But 4-man staffing, based on the indications from the council, is still a priority, and we're going to maintain 4-man staffing, which is a huge thing for us. Well, and you guys do a lot of fire duty. I mean, you guys are, and it's not just that, the high rises, and I know there's a lot of people out there, Homer, they're not fortunate to have 4-person staffing. I just know here, and my boss has really come, I got the greatest, brilliant, I'm telling you that, Claude King is by far, I know you'll defend your city manager because you guys love him, but I'm telling you, I've got the best in the world here. And he's even said he understands that that difference from going from 3 to 4 people. It's really, I don't even think you can describe it, Homer. The difference it makes at an incident, whether it's a pin-in, accident, or a fire, going from 3 to 4. Just I don't know how to quantify it, if you will, appropriately. I mean, it's an incredible difference on the incident. Well, as our good friend Alan Brunissini says, that firefighting is basically it's an intelligent form of manual labor, and we've got to have those folks on the truck in order to be able to do anything. Take people downstairs on cots, or stretch a line up a set of stairs, or set ground ladders. So we have to have people to do that. Oh, so. Kudos, hats off to you, because I know, everyone in this area is struggling, and I think last year the city had to make some pretty hard moves to meet the budget needs. I think they're doing some furloughs throughout the city for city employees, some civilian employees, right? They did do some, and I want to brag on our sworn people on that. I was hoping you would, buddy. Go ahead. And all of our civilian employees took 7 furlough days, 7 unpaid furlough days, and basically it was about a 3% reduction
reduction in their salary. We had a battalion chief named Paul Ryder, just a great guy, caring, giving kind of individual. He rallied our firefighters, our sworn personnel, and said, "Look, there's 70 people. They may not be they may not be wearing uniforms, but they're still Fort Worth Fire Department employees. We ought to reach out and help them. They're having a hard time. We should reach out and help them." And in the process, I think they raised about $10,000.
Wow.
And right before Thanksgiving, the battalion chiefs went around. They collected the money, and then it was, I think most folks gave $10 to $20 is what they gave, $10, and we were able to write them, every one of those civilian employees a check, and it didn't make up for missing that day right before Christmas, but it did send a message that, what, we can care and love you even though you're not a sworn member. We tried to take down that barrier.
Homer, you told me that not too long ago, and that's the kind of stuff we don't talk about enough. Is you've always heard me talk about the fact that I don't run this fire department, Louisville. I do nothing but sit in my chair and spin around circles, and as my good buddy Tom Freeman would say, watch the fan blades go around. Our staff runs the fire department, and I'm proud to say it. My secretary runs the whole damn fire department. And
right.
Sometimes those are what you call those silent heroes. You don't hear from them much, but man, they are the backbone, and we tend to get caught up in our day-to-day life, riding the prima donnas on the fire trucks. Homer, it's the same, especially up north, we're a little bit colder, but, when you're driving down the street and you're $500,000 fire engine and you see Public Works at a ditch trying to connect the sewer pipe, or it's freezing cold or raining or snowing, Coeur d'Alene was great at this. Those guys would turn around, they'd go to the donut shop, get a couple dozen donuts or some bagels, some hot coffee, and bring it back to the troops, the guys that were there out there, the people that, and here all of a sudden, as I would say, the prima donnas on the fire trucks pull up and they're like, "What? The firefighters brought you coffee out there?" Just that whole team realizing that everybody's got a job to do, but to step up and first of all, for your battalion chief to have that thought, and then obviously, I think some firefighters are some of the most caring people in the world. That's just cool. That's a cool story, and I was hoping you would share that. That's just awesome, buddy.
Yeah, that is. That's a tremendous. I think that's a tremendous compliment to the just what good people forest firefighters are, and firefighters everywhere. I don't think anybody else, but just to come up with the idea and have the backbone to do the follow up and go out and collect the money. There's some good people. You just can't say good enough things about people like Chief Ryder.
Well, and part of that is when you've got a good thing going morale-wise, and a lot of that kind of comes down to what kind of attitudes the men and women want to have, because you could have a mutt for a chief. Not that, obviously we were bragging on Rudy, no way anywhere towards him. I'm saying some other places, and it's hard. It's hard to show up at work and still love the job as much as you want to. But I've said before, all too often we let someone else steal that passion out of our chest. We let someone else take the best day of our life, that day, showing up at that best job, and they steal from us. And so you got the morale going. I mean, I always joke about, fire engines being red, and red in the fire service does truly stand for courage and valor. If they're not red, park them out in the sun, they'll ripen. Everybody laughs. I usually get hate mail, and I usually say, look, I'm just joking. A fire engine is a fire engine, no matter what color you got. As long as you're proud and you take care of them. Fort Worth, there's a couple websites, and I was hoping you could mention. There's the city one, then there's the other one I think one of your photographers has something to do with.
Yes, and that's Glenn Ellman, and I think Glenn's probably one of the best fire photographers.
Oh my God,
in the country. I mean, he has given us over the years. He has given us exposure and public relations that we couldn't pay for. At one time, Glenn was the editor for the photography editor for the Star Telegram, and he listened to the radio, and he would get up and go to fires in one-story frames. When we have a big fire, all the news outlets show up, but this guy is out in the middle of the morning, 4 o'clock, and maybe some of our less, undesirable kind of neighborhoods that you wouldn't want to drive around in by yourself late at night. But he's out there shooting pictures and showing the work at house fires and wrecks and whatever of Fort Worth firefighters. And that website is FortWorthFire.com, and Fort Worth is spelled out F-O, I think. Yeah, it's spelled out, FortWorthFire.com. And the guy's name is Glenn Ellman. Just a tremendous gallery of photographs. And
well, pretty much all your magazine covers, when I've seen Fort Worth on, it's been his work, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely. And I tell you what, it's surprising. You can't pick a fire service magazine up and not see that I just don't see them anymore that don't have some example of his work in there. And it may be in ads, and you may not recognize it as a Fort Worth person, but I'm going to tell you, he just does just a tremendous amount of work for equipment companies, fire apparatus manufacturers. A lot of the guys that you teach with around the country are using Glenn Ellman stuff.
Oh, I'm telling you, his photos have won awards. And Homer, we did a show a while back with my good guy, buddy, and I know you know him, Gordon Nord is the chief in Lyons, Illinois, southwest side of Chicago. Gordy's the same way. He is out taking pictures. Tony Greco, he's the FDIC photographer, but he's out in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. He's another Steve Reddick from Chicago. That whole fire photography, and you're right, everybody shows up at the big one, but the moments you capture on film that he does, that I've seen of your guys pulling kids out of buildings and going to work, the expressions on the guys and the men and women, their faces, and just that whole, like you said, that he's given them an inside view, your citizens and everybody around there, as to what's going on. I mean, everybody looks, there's a lot of fire, there's a lot of smoke at the big ones, but some of his, I mean, you go look. I mean, this stuff is incredible. Not just the apparatus shots, but I'm talking just the fire scene stuff.
He's in the process of finishing a book right now, and it's a portrait book basically, and it's not an annual as you would think of a fire department or a school annual where you have the photograph. Is that he brought, I'm going to say, 400 different people in.
Wow!
And it's everything from maybe 3 guys on our hockey team to a father's son, and you could bring a prop. The hazmat guys might be in level A suits, or you may just be bunker gear and an axe. But I want to show you that the next time. But it is phenomenal. It's the faces of the Fort Worth firefighters, and it's just like something I've never seen before.
Well, buddy, I use several of his photos in classes. Some of the magazine covers, but some of the other stuff. He's incredible. Folks, to our listeners, again, check out that website. I mean, I've got it, my favorite places. And if they had a fire last night and he was there, I'm guaranteeing you the pictures will be posted pretty quick too.
Right. If he had a fire last night, more than likely they're posted by this time in the morning.
I'm telling you, I've gotten up in the morning and missed a page and went, Fort Worth had, and I've gotten on there and incredible footage. Speaking of incredible footage, because I want to get to what I want to talk to you about today, about your operation and some prior ownership stuff. The video, to our listeners, if you haven't seen the surveillance tape footage of that arson job, Homer, at the
at the nursery.
Oh my God! I mean, if this made national news, if you haven't seen these Peter says I can't cuss on the show.
They're criminals.
These criminals that throwing the glass. I mean, they pull in and the gas is sloshing out the back, and then they're opening up propane tanks to add to it. The gasoline running through it, dumping whole just buckets of gas. How much gasoline? Do you remember how much they said they?
No, I don't. And I haven't talked to our arson people about that. But it's some very fascinating footage, and there were some firefighter injuries from a collapse, from an awning collapse.
I saw that posted, the awning collapse, and they kind of kicked their way out, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the potential to lose firefighters. You watch that videotape. You watch that footage. If you go to probably in the news affiliates here, you can pull up that footage. What was the name? If they need the name of that, do you remember the name of the facility? If they need to Google or
I don't remember the name of it. It was, and I think Glenn has some information posted on that on his website. If you want to refer to it, it was a nursery on Altamere. out on Altamere Street.
Folks, I'm telling you, go to the local news channels here and pull it up. You'll be appalled and you'll be angry when you see what these guys are doing and what Fort Worth guys had to roll up on and take care of. But great footage, surveillance tape wise for educational purposes. But Homer, I've been to your facility and your current assignment. If you were to tell me your current assignment. I know you've worked all over Fort Worth in your career, but what you're doing right now.
I'm a captain over the apparatus and in maintenance facility. I'm kind of the fleet manager. Currently, I write all the specifications for new fire apparatus and design and write those specifications, and also for equipment. I'm in charge of the make ready of the apparatus as well as the point of coordination between city shops of doing preventive maintenance as well as repair of fire apparatus. Pretty much anything that has a motor or is on wheels, I'm in charge of, as well as I do a lot of the research and development and tool development. In charge of most of the hand tools, saws, fans, axes, thermal imaging cameras, etc. Except for everything, I don't have anything to do with protective equipment or SCBAs.
Well, I'm telling you, as a firefighter who loves the job, and there's so many that listen to this program that are like you and I, Homer, they're into it. They're into the pride and ownership. They're listening to it on their way home. They're working out, whatever. I go there and it's invigorating because you pull up and there's some older buildings are metal clad, and you look at the one, you look at the other one, then you look at your shop, and when you walk inside. And there's several buildings there. It's like being a kid in a candy store. When you walk into your shop and you see what your staff, what your people are designing and creating with not, I mean, whether it's engines or ladders or quints or squads, rehab units. We talk about it all the time. It's like a toy store. I mean, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. For a firefighter, if you ever make it to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, get a hold. We'll have Homer's information in the show. Get a hold of him and just stop over there and see what they're doing, and go next door to their warehouse where they're making furniture and sewing bunker gear, and they even have blue Fort Worth vacuum cleaners. I know I was there for that, but it's an incredible operation. Homer, when we're talking pride and ownership, and what you do right now, and obviously, folks, when it comes to specification, if you want to know what tools work and what don't work, what apparatus works and what doesn't, we've been over there umpteen times to ask his advice. I know people from all over the country come to ask Homer's advice or call him or email him. Homer, when it comes to the whole pride, how do you feel that what you're doing and what your staff is doing and your team there, what's that doing for your departments? That whole pride and ownership thing with what you're creating and what you're doing there.
Well, I think that a big chunk of pride and ownership actually starts right here. Is that, we want to give them a fire apparatus that they're proud on, that's both aesthetic and pleasing, that, you feel good when you get on that thing. You look good going down the street, but then it's functional. Is that when you take that, when we go to an incident, that things work on it and they work right. And, that my guys here in the shop, we spend a lot of time in mounting equipment. And you come in the morning and you throw your stuff on the truck, and you start going through the departments, or, compartments. Everything should be mounted. Everything should have a place so that you immediately know that. And that's how pride and ownership in the tools start. If that's just thrown into the compartment and it's nasty and the compartment's nasty and it's hard to clean out, you're not going to get very motivated to do that.
Well, and you've got, don't you? I've watched where, first of all, and you just hit it. You hit right where I was going with. How many times you've been places and you open up a compartment? That's usually I do. I look at how the hose beds are finished and everything else. My, good friend, God bless him, Chief Benny Crane, taught me a long time ago to look at the rig. The rig will tell you what kind of company you got, what kind of firefighters you have. Look at their tools, and you said it. You look in the compartment, stuff just thrown in there. But you guys actually reach out to the troops. First of all, having you in there, the real thing, and your guys, it's not just we're not just mounting stuff to make it look pretty. We're mounting it to be functional, to make sure it's the best use for the men and women. You reach out to the guys and ask their advice, right?
We absolutely do. And we have pretty closely standardized our apparatus some years ago. So we don't. I always try to have them come down. When we have a new truck come in, I call those folks, and it may be a while before we get it outfitted and ready for them to go. But I call them and let them come down here and let them make suggestions. All of them have maybe some different ideas or some tools that are specialty tools for them. We spend a lot of time working with those companies and asking questions for them. But we want it to be functional. There's no need, and we try to make it safe. The first thing is, we haven't had any problems in some years, but we used to mount a lot of things on the outside of the apparatus, axes and those kind of things. You know what? People that aren't very nice to you can use that against you.
Exactly.
And we don't. We're very cautious about mounting tools in the apparatus that don't meet some kind of a standard to hold them in place, because we have a rack. I don't want them to be injured secondarily by some flying tool in there. But also secure those things in the apparatus where somebody can't use it against you. It's just we're always working with companies to try to find the best place to put things. But after we've mounted so many now that we've kind of gotten in a routine, and we make recommendations to them, say, this is where we've been doing this for some time. Does it work for you? Does it not work for you? And if not, we make the adjustments.
Well, I know every time we're there's something new parked in there, or several, and it's always fun just to walk around with you, with your guys, and see what you're doing with. I mean, I'll be honest, we've stolen so many ideas from you. I mean, you want to take 10 pounds of what and put it in a 5-pound bag and have it organized. Look at a Fort Worth fire engine or ladder or whatever, because if there's a tool that they need on there, Homer and his guys find a way to make it fit and not just jam it in or everything. I'm telling you, buddy, Homer, everything on the rig there, from the bumper to the tailboard, has a place, and it's not just let's stick it here because there's a place to hang something. It all you sit there tactically, and I've done that with Tim Tittle, my assistant chief operations, when we've been there, Homer, going, man, you know what? You pull up at a cut job right now. What you need for extrication at this pinning, you're not running around the rig like the Marx Brothers, slamming compartment doors. You pull up at
exactly.
Right. It's all. I mean,
it's there, and that's part of helping those firefighters do their job, because it's in the same spot every time, and they know that, and it's not being moved from one to another spot. It's in the same spot. You know it. It's secure. You go to it. You can walk to that compartment, open the door. It makes you look like a professional.
So, I mean, the big point, I guess, that I'd like to make is, and just again, I've been waiting to get you on here and couldn't wait, is, here you go, you get the stuff, you've sought the input from the troops, and like you said, the pride and ownership starts with putting together a rig. I mean, the Fort Worth fire apparatus is some of the nicest looking you'll see, I'm telling you. But besides just that, 'cause a lot of nice things out there, they're not functional, that look nice, I should say, they're not functional. It's taking those tools, it's taking an apparatus, and having that passion, Homer, that you guys have about when you deliver an engine to a new firehouse, or when they come and exchange, that those guys they're like, oh my God, look at this, that kind of thing. I mean, you're laying, here it is. It's like you're saying, okay, now you guys need to take the baton and run with it.
Exactly. And one thing too is that we really work at, before those fire companies take delivery of those things, I spend at least a day with each company on each shift going over that thing bumper to bumper so that they feel comfortable with it, and then trying to give them the tools that they need. One of the projects we're just getting ready to do, and I told you about it the other day, is that these apparatus have changed a lot over the years. We used to take a wheel brush, wash the floorboard out, and, we could keep the truck clean that way. But with all the electronics and the new, the new designs of the apparatus, it's very difficult to do that. So we looked at that and said, how can we help those guys have more pride and ownership? One way we're going to do it is we're getting ready to we're going to issue these small DeWalt shop vacs to every fire station. and that's going to be able to help them keep the interiors of those cabs a little bit cleaner, and just trying to give them the tools that they need. The chief that used to be one of the deputy chiefs of operation here, his name is Jerry Allison. Jerry told me one time, and it's true, you never see a crack crew on a dirty truck. And the reason for that is that you know that they're a crack crew because if they're willing to take the time, the effort to keep that apparatus clean, maintain their tools, they're doing the big stuff. They're training. They're wearing their safety equipment. They're doing all those things. You take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves.
Absolutely. It goes exactly. You and I have this same belief that, like I said earlier, you could look at an engine, you could look at a ladder, the firefighters could be in the store, they could be in a building checking on an alarm. You look at the rig, exactly, Homer, you can tell right now, without shaking her hands, without talking to them, you can tell just what kind of crew.
Absolutely. I go into any city in America, and I could tell you a lot about the crew. I just stop them if their truck parked out in the parking lot somewhere.
And if their rig is filthy, if their tools are rusted and not taken care of, and we've said this 100 times on this show before, that's a personality trait. And I guarantee you, if that's what's on the rig, inside that's how they're treating someone's home, that's how they treat training, that's how they treat each other. A slob's a slob, and there ain't no other way to get around it. I'm sorry,
You're right, Chief. You're absolutely right.
I mean, tell me, and I've been there sometimes. When Fort Worth and Homer's team puts together a vehicle, let's just say a rehab vehicle, it's not just coolers full of Gatorade. I mean, there's a whole process to putting the best rig out there possible for their people. And the guys and our listeners, the guys and gals out there, he'll explain. Well, it's not just about getting. I remember the one time with the rehab deal we were looking at, Homer. He goes, well, he doesn't just say this is what we're doing so we come out and take care of the people. He actually puts it to real life, okay? Because he'll explain. If you're at a scene now, and you look at this, you look at that, and these guys are going through this, they need to be able to do this. You need to go to the bathroom, they need to go to that. I mean, it's not just we gave them this great rig, because you see so many pieces of apparatus Homer being put out there that it's like whenever you and I go to lecture somewhere, and you and I get to teach all over the country, all over the state, you can always tell when the person that put together the classroom was not a teacher, was an architect, because everything's set up cockamamie. You got people, the doors to get in are walking by you, the coffee pot's in a bad direction, the doors, the window, you can't turn the lights off in front of the the projection screen. You can tell someone that doesn't teach put that together. Just like you said, you can also tell when someone designs a rig. Homer, I was at a place and they were showing me like they do you. When you're there, they want to show you the rig, they open the compartments. And I've said this one before. They open up this little compartment. There's a little tiny halogen bar in there with a little hammer. And I go, is that for the little firefighter? And they go, well, no, those are irons. And
that's all, but it's based on is that they're having to use their tools to go, to fit around their truck.
Well, and you know what happened in this particular case? Yes, it was that. It's like, okay, in this particular case too, I said, well, who designed the fire engine? And they said, well, our chief. I go, does your chief ride this thing anymore? Now, I know there's departments out there, Homer, especially volunteer places where, the chief may be a paid guy like yourself and a volunteer, and he's probably got, or she's got the best knowledge base to put that rig together, spec it. But I tell you right now, my captain, John Ashman, and our chief engineer, Edgar Covey, that oversee our apparatus. I've been here 10 years, Homer. I have never spec'd Jack. You know what? I don't ride them anymore. The guys do. Like you said, I mean, how much involvement does Chief Rudy Jackson have in checking compartments in Fort Worth?
And, I have literally, it's a focus group here every day, is that we have companies come through every day. And I try to take the time and the effort to go out and talk to those folks. Hey, what's working for you? What's not working for you? What do you like? What do you not like? And we get so many good ideas. Just in the last 6 months, we just finished up we were wanting to change our seats in our fire apparatus that would accompany or would allow us to, and when we've been doing it for a long time, we wanted to change the brackets that the SCBAs were mounted in. I ordered 2 seats from 2 different companies with 2 different style brackets. All I did was put them out there in the repair bay of the here at the shop. Every day, at least 8 firefighters would sit in that, and they'd play with it. And I'd just walk out there, and they'd be playing, and I'd say, what do you think about that? Oh, we like this one right here. That's the best survey that you can do.
What a novel idea! Asking the guys that use this stuff what they think.
And it's simple. I mean, I didn't have to do no questionnaire, but it wasn't hard to count heads. They clearly knew which one of those seats they liked the best.
Well, and some of the best studies, right? We were talking lights years ago, and FDNY said, so, with all the different reds and blues, and they said, a lot of white out the front, and a lot of amber out the back, it gets people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, just the same thing. We're not splitting atoms. We're trying to give the troops the best stuff they need. And, I mean,
just a common sense approach to that is all we need.
And, Homer, do you see a lot of guys in your travels struggle that they don't have the support that you have, or like I'd like to give John Ashman here and Edgar, the support they need? Because Johnny Ashman, oh my God, he's, you guys are cut from the same cloth. It's all about what's good for the troops and designing the best rig. But, what do you tell some of these young men and women when they come to you and go, I don't have the support you have. And unfortunately, there are a lot of great chiefs, but some are a deputy. They're meddling in it. They won't even, the guys said they wanted this, and they want. What do you say to someone? Is it just hang in there, or?
Well, I think it is, and I mean, a lot of these departments are changed one retirement at a time, and. You have to be patient because someday you're going to get your shot at it. And
I like that.
But I'm going to tell you that I think anybody can make a change in your fire department. I feel like and let me prepare you. If you're going to be a change agent, you need to be prepared to get beat up in the process because they do get bloodied.
Absolutely.
But I think the very first day you come on the fire department, you can make a difference in your fire department, whether it's in your attitude or how hard you work at a project or be willing to take a project on. You can make change, and it's a process and not an event. It has to happen continuously through your career. You have to be a lifelong learner, but you have to be willing, for the entire career to help make change and be part of change.
Well, and we've been talking a lot about what you and I are doing with our paid departments, and you've been with Granbury for just, and again, I had the honor of coming out and being able to speak before your group for your Firefighters Memorial, and when you opened up your Firefighter Memorial Park. What an incredible group. I don't know if you still have the very nice female firefighter that does your pub ed with the puppets.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! She's up there on stage, folks, at this banquet, and I'm listening to the damn puppet. She's doing this ventriloquism. I mean, I'm like, she is so good at what she does. It's like watching. It was unbelievable. I'm incredible lady with incredible talent. But Granbury, and again, a lot of it, I guess, comes down to leadership. How do we just talked about how you motivate your guys at Fort Worth, how we do it with a pay department. For all the volunteer fire departments out there with varying budgets and from 10-member departments to 500-member or whatever, what do you do to make that work? Let's switch gears. You went home and you're back to Granbury. How do you make that work in your fire department there? That same thing.
The most volunteers it's obviously a need to help serve your community, and some of them have some other motivations other than that. But I think it's sort of the same philosophy, is that you have to give them. They want to be part of a first-class organization. And
how big is Granbury's volunteer fire department?
Well, we operate 2 stations there. It's kind of an interesting community. Is that they're, the county is one of the smaller counties in the state, and there's approximately 60,000 in the county, and there are 8 other volunteer fire departments along in that county. But the city of Granbury itself is kind of unusual. Is it has 7,000 people in it, but it has the commercial buildings of a community that has 60, 70, 80,000 people, because it has all of the commercial buildings, grocery stores. We have kind of a mix of old and new. It's a lakefront community, so we have a lot of multi-story retirement centers.
Legendary town square.
One of the best, probably the best town square in the state of Texas, with a huge, with an old courthouse in the middle of it. But a lot of old, ordinary construction buildings that have been renovated for 20 times over the last 120 years. And so the fire load and the issues are quite a bit different, as well as we still go out in the community, out in the county a lot, and fight a little bit of everything out there. So they're getting some firework there. They're maintaining about 40, 45 members, but reasonably busy, and they have good apparatus, but good leadership. If you want to learn how to be a leader, it's get involved in a volunteer fire department someplace and try to motivate people to get up in the middle of the night, to go do lift help or go make an EMS call. If you can lead those kind of people, you can, and you're a good volunteer fire officer, you can probably be the CEO of a good company somewhere too.
Well, and I've said it before. It takes a volunteer department takes a good chief that understands what it's like. Just like you said, to get up at 4:00 in the morning, knowing you're going to have to go to your real job a little bit, because it's not like the old days where you could run out of the hardware store, run out of the grocery store and go when the whistle blows. It's a commitment thing. Like you said, Homer, if you can inspire, if you can lead, create that kind of atmosphere. I mean, you were so close to my good best buddy. You know him, John Salka, the battalion chief in the Bronx,
right,
and a volunteer firefighter with one station. Same thing. You go from working with a paid budget to doing a pancake breakfast or a fundraiser or whatever. So many of our firefighters, God bless them, great men and women, but they've never seen that side. And I think you take that for granted when you're like, why didn't they just give me more? When it's just
right, and they don't get the respect that they need. I mean, there are some very well trained, knowledgeable volunteer firefighters out there that I admire. I used it as a young guy, being a young career firefighter and being a volunteer on my days off. Is that I used it as a training ground. Because I could experiment with things. I could take the truck out anytime I wanted to, pump it. I made really good friends. There was the social aspect of it, but there was many times that I'd get off from 24 hours and, we'd made 7 or 8 EMS calls and didn't make a fire, and I could go home and over 2 days make 2 or 3 working fires. So that's where I honed my skills, and it was, it was part of the motivation for doing it.
And you grew up. I mean, you were like I think we were both in diapers going to fires one day.
Oh, absolutely. My dad spent even was very active up until the into his 45 years there. Was very active even at the end of his life in the fire department. I mean, he wasn't going inside pulling line, but he was certainly at the station. Supporting activities and doing those kind of things.
Well, and isn't there, Homer? They're speaking of the ownership part of that. There's always a function, there's always a need, there's always a task for somebody. And when you've got someone that's maybe getting up there in age and maybe not going in the building anymore, there's always something, whether it's filling bottles, whether it's, covering a sector. I mean, don't you, there's always...
Oh, yeah, there's pub ed, and, I mean, there's tons of things that, almost people at any age, and we pay particular attention to these firefighter deaths, and you see this, a lot of these older folks are dying in the line of duty because of underlying health issues or heart attacks or whatever. But there's always things for them to do, There's always things for them to do.
Well, buddy, I know, like I said, in Granbury, I think the motto, or if you will, the statement on the welcome sign when you're driving in is I think it says, "Where Texas histomay lives." If I may be off a word or two, and just the tours you given to me there, the people there are wonderful. It's exciting. I mean, if you're a volunteer and you want to see how it all happens the right way, and again, you've got one guy there that's a professional bass fisherman on tour all over winning championships.
Right.
And you've got a guy coming out of fields, and you've got a guy who's a businessman, you got a guy who's a lawyer. I mean, you want to talk about, if you went back in time, that's the volunteer fire service. That would, your department demonstrates, because you've got all walks of life. It's nobody really cares.
It's a snapshot of your community. It should be a snapshot of your community. you've got to reach out to all different kinds of people on there. You were kind enough in 2007 was our 100th anniversary, and we opened that park, which is I think today it's a beautiful place. And if you're ever in those part of the world, you need to stop and look at it. A very nice bronze statue, life size, actually time and a half size life statue that listed all the members of the department that served in the first 100 years.
Well, like I said, it's incredible, and you know what? We've got a few more minutes here, and before we go, I wanted to ask you a couple more things, Homer, about this whole pride and ownership thing. We've been talking about, I've watched you. New saw blade came out several years ago, and I think you burned through like 10,000 of them to make sure they were the right one. You had everybody cut and everything with it before you made that decision, and if you said it before, if they can't break it and the guys like it, then it's what we get. Getting out and being that kind of officer that's truly, sincerely seeks the input from their people about tools and apparatus design, the firehouse design, and all, where they can have that ownership. If you want them to take care of it, like you said, give them the chance to have a say. Give them the chance to say, I had a part in this. I had, it's the Southwest Airlines thing. I mean, let them know that they have that ownership. But once in a while, how do you face off against maybe that attitude where you've got someone that just, you go through all this work and you see them treat something badly or poorly. They just don't have that attitude. They take a $500,000 engine and not necessarily maybe in your department, but you've seen it before.
Oh, sure.
How do you face off against that kind of negative attitude, I guess?
Well, and I don't know if I've got a definitive answer for you on that, because we certainly have those issues as well, because when you're talking about over 900 sworn members, there are just, and when you're talking about a cross section of the our generation maybe looks at things a little different than the newer generation does, and but they have to have it. And I'll tell you one of the things that we looked at is years ago when I first came to work here is that, and we try to be fair, and we're very fair about it, but on the assignment of new apparatus is that you look at two companies in this town would always get new apparatus. One was the chief station, one was the busiest station. And because the chief didn't want to hear his crew gripe, and then the busiest engine, basically they were just running through that thing. Well, I decided we were going to change that when I took over here, and what we do is that my attitude is if they know that they're going to get a new truck every 3 years and they're just going to rotate that out to a slower company someplace, that they're not going to have any pride and ownership in that. It's like they're driving a rent car. You ever taken care of a rent car you had?
Right, I know exactly where you're going with that. Exactly.
So you know what? When you're assigned an engine here, you have it from basically cradle to grave. We're going to give it to you, and you better take care of it, because at that 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road, if you don't take care of it now, it's junk then.
Right.
And so I think that's helped us instill a little bit more, ownership and pride in those things. And then we base that on that replacement, not necessarily on time. We'd like to see it at about 10 years, but it's maintenance and hours of operation and all kinds of things that we tie into that criteria. But if you're going to get it, it's not going to be a rent car.
Well, and I guess part of that may go back to what you said earlier about, handing things off to them, giving them, what they need. But that whole thing of you look at the rig and you've never seen a crack crew on a messy rig. You've never seen one on one that's filthy dirty, right, with the tools that are all messed up on it.
And and we live in a society too where it just makes people crazy to tell them no. But if you're a chief officer, you're a company officer, volunteer, career, I don't care. You have to be the designated adult. Sometimes you have to speak up and say, you know what, that's not acceptable behavior. That truck looks like crap.
Right.
You gotta step up here. I don't care how you keep your personal car, but here, I want to see some stuff cleaned up. And people, and I think a lot of chief officers, a lot of company officers, because of the close, we're living close together, is that, oh man, I don't want to get on his bad side. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to talk to him in a negative way. people understand and forgive that. Most of the time, they want leadership, and that's about being leader.
They want to be told. Guys want to be told. Tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Right. Tell me what's right. Tell me what's wrong.
And it takes courage to lead. It takes courage to lead, make those decisions
Absolutely.
because they're right, not because they're popular.
Absolutely.
And but hey, I can't let you go away without a couple things here. One is, Homer, you've been my good buddy for God so many years, and you've been there for me good when I've had my good times, my bad times, and you've been a true friend and brother with your advice. Once in a while we get some folks on the show that we do we have a lot of great people, but I can't let you go without asking you kind of right now. I've got 3 new firefighters here, and great young firefighters. If I had the opportunity to sit them in a room with Captain Homer Robertson, what would Captain Robertson say to those? What advice would you give to the new firefighter that's embarking, and this is their first day of their start? What would you tell a new Fort Worth firefighter, a new Louisville firefighter? What advice would you give them?
Oh, Rick, I don't know. I wish you'd have asked me that before, so I could have been prepped for that. But you got to have.
I did it on purpose.
Well, and I know, and they're first of all, the first thing I tell them to do is they need to keep a log. They need to write daily about the experiences. I wish that I had the experiences and talk about the people.
Me too.
That I've met over the last 30 years. I mean, it would be amazing.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I wish I did too. I've thought of that.
And then the other thing I'd encourage you to do is you don't have to do it today, but look for people who you want to model yourself after, and find a moral and spiritual leader. And it may be you're only taking certain aspects of that person. But there are a lot of good people out there that we need to clone, and it's important to have somebody that you can do that with. And it may just be aspects, and it can be good or bad. I've seen company officers that I said, when I'm a company officer, I'm never going to do that.
There's your life's lesson, yeah.
Yeah, and those life lessons can be positive or negative, but be sure that you pay attention to those life lessons out there.
What about on the fire ground, buddy? What would you tell them? They show up at their first fire. What would you want them to be thinking about?
Well, first of all, if you're showing up at the first fire, you find the most experienced guy or your company officer, and you stick close to them, because more than likely they're not going to get you in a bind. But you have to be an intelligent firefighter these days. Things are changing. We have to attack these fires with an intelligent level of aggression. We got to know what's a winner and what's a loser. And it's not just whatever it takes. We're going to go all the way, even if we get hurt in the process. I just want us to use intelligence, and that's what I want to see in these young guys. I want to see young guys and girls too. I want to see them to be smart firefighters. Smart firefighters,
stay safe. I mean, just like you said, and I'll tell people, and you and I've had this conversation over coffee. It's not our dad's or our grandpa's fire anymore. It's not. We're going to different things where we've got different stuff burning, and I used to say, Homer, that it was our job to make sure our guys went home at the end of their shift to their families. Well, I won't say that anymore. I don't say. In fact, I think that's short-sighted for me. Selfishly, I'll just talk about Rick Lasky. I'll say now that our goal should be to make sure they go home at the end of their career. When they retire from being a volunteer firefighter or a paid firefighter, that they go home with 2 good knees, a good back, and no cancer. And you do that by doing, just like you said, fasten yourself to a mentor. Pick someone. I've told my union presidents, Homer, when I had a new union president here a couple years ago, I said, you want to see how you should act and how you should be as a union president? Go call. Here's Jim Tate's phone numbers. Go have lunch with him. Go take him to lunch. He probably won't let you pay, but you need to pay for him. And that guy will line you out on how to be a good union officer and a good brother. There's some great. Talk to Cheryl Horvath. Erica Nelson, Cheryl Horvath. You want to see if you're a female firefighter, there's so many role models, like you said, Homer. Try not to pick the one. Right? Think about what do I want people to say about me? Do you want me to say like you said, that officer? Oh my God. What do I want people to say about me and my abilities as a firefighter?
Right. And and that young person just first coming on the job, not only as a company officer is it my job to make sure that they go home, it's their job to make sure I go home. You know what? I don't have a quick as step as I used to. And it's that young person's job to help me and to nurture me and to making sure I can make it to retirement too.
Two-way street.
It is a two-way street.
Well, buddy, Homer, I can't thank you enough for being on the show with me, pal. And we've had Captain Homer Robertson with the Fort Worth Fire Department and with the Granbury Volunteer Fire Department here in Texas. Just a wonderful, wonderful human being. I don't know how else to explain it, buddy. I can't. Hey, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, they wanted to pick your brain on specking a rig or a tool or what you're doing, or maybe they're coming to town and they want to come and see Fort Worth, maybe a couple of your stations, or see your operation, like I said, how would they get a hold of you to do that?
Well, they can reach me by phone at 817-392-3492. That's my office number.
Okay.
Or they can reach me by email at Homer, Homer, .Robertson, Robertson, at Fort Worth, and it's spelled out, FORTWRTH, FortWorthGov.org.
Well, buddy, thank you so much. And like I said, folks, to our listeners, reach out to Homer if you've got any questions, any advice. We do it. I do it. I've called him umpteen times, like I said before, asking for advice on a whole gadget of issues. But Homer, if you do me a favor, tell Chief Jackson, great chief, tell him I said hi, and give Jimmy Tate a hug for me, and more importantly, give Ty a hug for me. I know we're going to come out and spend some time with you on weekend on your ranch, and just, buddy, I love you to death, and I can't thank you enough for being a guest today.
Okay, Chief, thank you, and God bless, and y'all be safe.
Thanks, pal.
All right.
Hey, that was it. We had Captain Homer Robertson from Fort Worth Fire on the show with us. Incredible information. Again, how do you stimulate pride and ownership, and again, you got to hear from the end of the person that puts the apparatus and the tools and the equipment in the hands of the troops, and how they do it, the right way to do it. There's all kinds of great advice from Homer, but probably some of the most significant for me is, chiefs or bosses out there, let your people get involved. Let them have a say, like he does. Let them truly come back and tell you. You want to find out what makes morale work when it comes to apparatus, tools, equipment, and your firehouses. Go talk to them. Get on the phone with them. Have a cup of coffee with them when you're in for a visit, and you'll see how it works. And you'll see an incredible example of a great two fire departments, both from the volunteer end and the paid end of things. So, hey, with that, if you have any suggestions and ideas, please give me a shout at rick@prideandownership.com, rick@prideandownership.com. And as always, we finish the show with actually, before I say, I'm going to say see at FDIC, or keep your tradition alive. But we finish the show with two very, very, very important words, and that is be safe.